Thank you guys for joining us today on our India chapter of our Masterclass. We're excited to be presenting for you all today our findings that we've been able to collect over the last 2 years. For the past 2 years, our team has been traveling endlessly around the world, really to meet with countless executives in the workplace and real estate space and begin to understand what the hybrid world is asking of us in technology to continue to push forward in innovation. Smart and Spaces actually offers a suite of solutions in the hybrid world. So it's very exciting to start to understand where everyone is actually driving the market when it comes to the hybrid workplace environment. Our award-winning tech solution has been recognized by IDC and Gartner. Jumpre has been adopted as the leading Fortune 500 companies continue to evolve with our application, which is called Jumpre. And it's safe to say that Smart and Spaces is where it's at today because of the two gentlemen that I'm with here today, Jason and Dinish. So it's very exciting to be able to learn from them all the important things that they're continuing to see in the market when it comes to dealing with the biggest companies in the world and the way that they're transitioning into this new hybrid world, right? I kind of want to go through how we're going to be starting today. The presentation is going to be about 45 minutes. Then we're going to be able to actually have some time for a Q&A for 15 minutes. So remember to actually type in your questions below in the chat box and we'll make sure to get to them as the presentation goes on. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce you to the two gentlemen that are joining me today. First and foremost, Dinish Malcani, which is our owner and CEO. In the last 5 years, he's driven Smart and Spaces to be the global leader in the digital workplace and smart building technology space. He has taken the company global with clients in over 30 countries and offices worldwide. Prior to Smart Spaces, Dinish was actually the president of Cisco India. And then of course, Jason McAloon is our VP of Global Sales, one of the leading sales executives in the US and the world, really, when it comes to the workplace technology. Has over 10 years in workplace software experience and works with numerous Fortune 500 companies. So we're going to be able to learn a lot from his point of view as well. And with also myself, my name is William Abreu. I am the business development consultant here at Smart and Spaces. And I'm here to moderate this event. And I'm honestly here to learn just as much as everybody else is. So I'm excited to get started. So without further ado, I'll open the floor for Dinish Malcani.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Willie. So look, I'm going to spend about half an hour or 35 minutes just kind of talking about some of the learnings we've had. What are we seeing on the hybrid workplace side, some of the changes that are happening. And I'm not going to get into any product details. So this is not a product pitch. What we've done is we have managed to actually gather data from over hundreds of locations that we have done all over the world. These are some of the clients we work with, and we've collated all this information across different markets. Today is the India Masterclass. We've done this in Singapore, Australia, and in the US. And as you see in India, there's a fairly large size of base that is there. So this data will start to make a lot of sense. I'm sure you see a lot of it as well. Things are evolving and changing. So what we see today may not be what we see a couple of months down the road. And our intent through these masterclasses is to be able to educate you on being able to make sure that you understand what is going on. Feel free to ask any questions, put it in the chat box. We can even reach out separately and a recording will be sent out shortly, right? So the first learning that we've had on the hybrid workplace, right, has been that, look, at the end of the day, what employees are looking for when they think of office, when they think of the new office is, it's not a place for them to just go sit down and work. It's a place for them to come and heavily collaborate. They're looking for the opportunity, whether it's group of 2 people, 4 people, 5 people, it really doesn't matter, but to come back to work, build connections, and basically collaborate. We have a lot of data now. So if you see right from January through May, we're obviously starting to see that the number of transactions that are happening because a lot of it is driven through technology today, has just been going up, right? Whether you look at seats that are being booked, whether you look at meeting rooms that are being booked, the utilization is just increasing. And what's encouraging is to see that, because of the spaces or some of the collaboration areas, through our booking information, one of the inferences that, look, a lot of people are starting to now, as they get back, they get into these meetings, they have these conversations. We also looked at granular data to determine that it wasn't only one person who was going and sitting, it was a group of people, because usually they would book a room for a few people as opposed to for one particular person, right? So clearly that's one trend that we are sort of seeing, right? We had talked about it last year that people will come back to collaborate, but now I think there's real data to be able to prove that, right? The second thing that we are seeing is that in sort of discussions with our customers, in discussions with the employees that work there, so what's exciting for you to go back to work? And I think one of the things is being able to look at, I've got my colleagues going in, and that is the number one reason why they want to revert back. It could be a manager, it could be a colleague that is out there, it could be a subordinate, right? But in most cases, it turned out that even the footfall was there. Although footfall, I'll show you, data has been going up, and I think it will continue to rise as the months go by. But clearly, searching, looking at your sort of colleague is becoming one of the most important reasons why they're starting to come back to work. The third interesting learning that we had over here was, so what are some of the strategies people are using, right? Because obviously this is a big challenge for companies, right? When they think about hybrid, they think about, how do I get my people to come back, but also interact with each other and form those connections, form a habit of actually getting back. So if you look at the utilization on the user groups, right? These are, okay, I bike and now suddenly I find out that, there's a biking club in my office. I'll go connect to that and start collaborating and communicating with them. So the whole essence of forming that community and collaboration is not just about, just colleagues, right? It could be like-minded folks that are there. And I think that's also driving, a lot of people to start thinking about, let me connect back with my teammates, let me connect back with like-minded people, and of course then draw them back into the office, right? Also another learning that we have had is, so if you look at it, what's the definition of collaboration? Is it just sitting down and having a cup of coffee? Well, the answer has been no. I think there was a time when a lot of incentives were given, like, come back to work and there's free lunch and things like that. I think that's changed. People are looking for learning experiences. Out of all the things that our customers have been organizing in terms of events, in terms of other things, one draw that was clearly there, and particularly for the people that joined over the last couple of years, was, I want to go and sit with somebody who's experienced. I want to go learn. It could be a classroom session. It could be just colleagues coming back and sitting and, looking through and saying, I want to, have that interaction. And if you really look at a percentage of people that joined over the last 2.5 years, for most companies, particularly in India, it's very, very high. It could be as high as 30 to 35%, right? So you have that group of people that actually wants to make the effort to be able to come back, right? And for them to understand, well, if I'm coming back, who else do I have an opportunity? Is my boss coming in? Things like that has been very important. But these were 4 things or learnings that we had in being able to understand the whole psyche of how to bring people back to work, why are people coming back, and what is their definition of collaboration, forming a community, right? So this was number 1. The second was just in terms of attendance, right? So we track this now on a daily basis because we're getting data from everywhere. I think the trends are very similar. The attendance levels from Jan all the way up to May, and even, actually June's even much better, but we don't have a full month, has been really going up. Whether you look at any market, right? Many of you in India may be supporting global markets, maybe supporting Asian markets, or may just be looking at India. You will find that it's been a huge, like a hockey stick, right? Of actual, and this is actual data, right? What was interesting was that, we started to see that Mondays were very low in attendance, but that's starting to come back a little bit. It could be because you have your review meetings on Monday. It could be because, people generally have already had a long weekend at home, and so they want to kind of go back. But Mondays have started looking better. Clearly, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday seem to be the favorites for almost everybody in any part of the world, including you will see in India. It is no different. And last but not the least, the problem is still Fridays. Fridays, our data shows us, has been very low. In fact, it has been reducing a little bit as compared to the other days. The number of people actually reverting back has been going down on Fridays, right? And now companies are using all kinds of strategies because you don't want to have a day where it's like completely empty, right? And in that regard, I'll come to what changes you can make in the workplace. But this is definitely the most latest information we have. I've looked at the June preliminary data, and I can tell you that this hockey stick actually keeps getting even sharper, which means June is one month where in any part of the world, the attendance has been much higher, right, relative to any other month. One thing that when we look at the workplace, so we talk about people and their preferences and their need to collaborate and who's coming back, right? But one thing is clear. During COVID, all of us changed our lifestyle. You have to appreciate that. And so we made changes at home, right? Some people put up these little areas where they could work out. Some people started to, buy cycles and start to cycle to, wherever. They get up in the morning, they go for a nice bike ride, right? People started looking at healthier choices of food. Some went to attend fitness classes. Some bought these new desks where you can stand up and work. Most of the time I like to stand up and work now because it's just become a habit, right? And so you have to understand that people's lifestyle choices changed. And as lifestyle choices change, so is the need to adapt to those lifestyle choices inside of the office. You look at your office and say, well, what changes can I make? I need to have bike racks because people have bought expensive bikes. And so let me think about that. Some people may want to cycle to work, or they may want to just, bike around inside of your campus. Many people are buying electric cars. I mean, there's no hidden secret. There's a lot of growth happening in that area. People, let's say you're in Bangalore and you're on Outer Ring Road. Many people may be coming from very far away from northern side of Bangalore, and they may be commuting, or you may have an office in, let's say, Connaught Place, and you have people coming in from Noida. That's quite a drive. Are you thinking about having EV chargers inside of your car park? Because a lot of people, your employees, will kind of need that, right? In terms of food choices, how are you offering those to your employees? And is there a way for you to constantly keep nudging them and saying, hey, by the way, if you're thinking on coming on Friday, we've got this plant-based new menu that's going to be offered for you guys to think about. If you're coming in, can you book it now so that we reserve it for you, right? But think about lifestyle choices. Every organization, every city is different. But across the board, in what we have seen, that when companies start to make changes at the workplace, it definitely drives a lot of attendance. It drives people to come back. It really improves their satisfaction level, because one big complaint has been, hey, I picked this up over the last 2 years. Why am I giving it up, right? But these were certain common things that we saw. In terms of standing desk, huge. A lot of people did this. They like to do it. So you've got to see, we have customers that of course changed out certain desks, but what they also did was they put wheels under their tables so they could move things around as well, just to rearrange spaces depending on how they were planning to make those changes. Also, I think there is no one size fits all. People throw a lot of statistics in terms of, oh, what's your footfall? Oh, my footfall is 15% or 20% or 30%. I think you have to take a little different view on it. What you have to think of, and a lot of our clients have done this, right, as they think about the hybrid work and the association with the workplace, they started to break up the employees that they had into different personas. In this case, as an example, Mandy, recent college graduate, entry-level position, lives in the city, so closer to work, has got 3 roommates, everybody's on Zoom calls or team calls. And so noisy environment at home, horns blaring, wants to come to the office and actually likes that environment, right? So for Mandy, 4 days in the office, 1 day work from home is her ideal hybrid schedule. Now, if you just track this persona and said, you know what, can I make the necessary changes in our policy, in our workplace, so that Mandy starts coming in? And rather than we start looking at our entire base and measuring what's footfall, let's focus on the Mandy persona and let's get that right. Second persona, in this case, Maria, she lives on the city outskirt, is a manager, has a great home, has got a spare room. So for her, it's not about every day coming in because, there are challenges at home, but it's really about being able to meet with her team and to be able to collaborate, meet with other colleagues, meet with the CEO of the company. And so from her perspective, 3 days, 2 days makes a lot of sense. That's what she likes. What you got to think of is, how does your workplace and your policy suit somebody like the Maria persona? And how does that get defined? Do you have enough data? Do you have plans that are there? Are you catering for enough collaboration areas for Maria? Because when she comes back, that's the reason that she wants to. And she does commute quite a lot because she's got a 45-minute drive. So how do you make sure her experience is really good? In this case, Mike lives away, got 2 kids, single parent, 1 day in the office, 4 days work from home. That's the schedule that works for Mike. And of course, Mike wants to come in, but he wants to hobnob with the other senior execs, do a town hall, speak to other different team members. How do you cater to somebody like Mike, who's only going to be coming in 1 day, but in that 1 day is going to want to pack 10 things in, is probably going to drive to the office. So do you have a parking slot available? Probably has an EV car. Do you have a charger? Well, it's got kids. So are there things like that? Do you have a crash? Maybe because, Mike may think about bringing, one of the kids over, right? But basically break it up into personas. This has worked really well for many of our customers. And I think what's important, what they really liked also as we work through with them is that, look, while we broke it into personas, they had all the tools available with them, because if Mike came alone and nobody was there that Mike used to work with, that 1 day is going to get a waste. So how does Mike choose the best day possible? So Mike is productive, Mike's happy, and at the same time, from a business perspective, it works out really well because Mike is now hybrid rather than being 100% remote, right? And so why this shift of changing the workplace, people coming back? And, I talk to many of the CEOs with companies we work with, and their thing is, listen, I can't give up culture. I've got to think about creating that thriving culture in a hybrid workplace. Most people stay in organizations for obviously money and learning and other things, but also they are part of a community. They are part of a culture. It's human behavior, right? You think about when you move into a residential complex, right? It's just buildings and you'll choose it for the location, etc. But why do you continue to stay there? Because you make friends there. You're part of a community and you get to know people, right? And so you do activities, you do things together. The same thing applies to the workplace, right? But the workplace meaning is different. So many of the companies now, what they do is very proactively, they keep pushing events, they nudge their people. Out of all the events, one very, very important learning that I want to share is, because when we started working early days, we were seeing what kind of events are getting pushed out on the system. Oh, it's free food, or there's a happy hours on Friday, or things like that. Attendance low. Where was the attendance the highest? Learning workshops. Remember, people still are worried about their careers. They want to grow. So they come back to attend learning workshops because they learn from the speaker. But the question is, why can't I just sit at home and see it on YouTube? No. It's about interaction. It's about also learning from my own colleagues, my own peers, because at the end of the day, that's true learning, right? That's what makes all the difference. So when you think about thriving culture in a hybrid world, think about the right kind of events and what drives behavior. Now, the system is important because it'll give you all the data, right? And it's very important for you to know. Otherwise, you'll be throwing money on comedy shows and free food and all that. And you'll find, you know what, actually, people really were not interested in that. They're interested in something completely different. In-person town halls, very important. And look, it's not about all the people. So another learning we had was, there were groups of people that were divided, and people were sent out, sort of notifications to the system saying, in-person town hall, you have been specially invited for it. So it's not for everybody. Please don't forward your invite. It's specially for you. You see how a lot of people show up. And by the way, these are 10 other people that are also showing up, right? So I think it's very important for you to be able to think about that experience and how do you make it a little more bespoke, right? Constantly taking surveys and feedback. This is important because in addition to the data, what you have to do is, the feedback that was there 2 months ago is going to be very different today. The fear factor is much lower. The reasons for them to come back have changed. It will be very different a month down the road. So for you to keep yourself agile, I think it's very important that this is a constant process. And, do it not by organization wide, but specific departments, specific personas, groups of people, because you're now sub-targeting, right? Clearly, one of the things that I think many of our clients have done is they have created physical spaces to re-energize social engagement, right? Very important. We look at some of our customers and we see that they have basically taken out a floor because now they have a little more space, and they've created these zones where people bump into each other, where they actually do activity. We've got a client who's actually built a mini theater inside of the office, and they show these short documentaries, short shows, etc., right? But important to have these zones that are there. And of course, last but not the least, just office tours and meet and greet for onboarding, particularly new employees, right? And look, it's basically one of the things which is a no-no, which when people show up, they get really upset if if they come and nobody else is there, right? So it's really, you don't want to have vacant floors. You don't want to have, and that's why many companies, if they had 5 floors, they're trying to first open only a couple of floors. And the reason they're doing that is because they want to pack in a few more people in those floors. Sometimes we got feedback that somebody went on the 5th floor and was the only person in the whole floor, right? And that gave a feeling of loneliness. That gave a feeling that, this is not a great experience, right? And so obviously, that's what people have been thinking about. And in terms of even a person coming back, and that's why checking, people want to check, are my colleagues in there? Are they in the office? Who else is coming in? I think that's huge, because when in many cases people came and they spent all day just in Zoom rooms, that was not a great experience. They wanted to come back knowing who else is going to be there. But all these go into creating that thriving culture inside of a hybrid workplace, right? Also, I think one of the things is, remember today, when you build out these spaces, right, there are many things you have to think about: transport, food, visitors are going to be coming in. You have spaces now. There are new collaboration zones. There are social energizing zones. You're nudging them to have events. All these have different technology sets. One experience and one learning was, if it gets too complicated for employees, they stop all, using all this. But see, that leads to other challenges, right? Loss of productivity, showing up on the wrong days, not being able to collaborate with each other, feeling that, oh, I came and it was a waste of time. And so at the end of the day, you need to think of not this overload of technology, or overload of things that a person needs to do. How do you simplify it, right? How do you encourage your teams to plan, by the way, for the whole month, as an example, or even for a few months? One of the things that we have learned from our clients is there's this notion of a Sunday evening conversation between the couple, because you have to understand both of them now are working in hybrid, right? And so they sit together and they decide, okay, which days are you going? Because somebody's got to look after the kids. Somebody's got to look after the pets, right? As an example, many of them bought pets during this period. So obviously making sure that you give them the ability to plan it out nicely, properly, but at the same time not overwhelm them, I think makes a huge, huge difference. And so this notion of technology overload, and our job has been to keep making this easier and easier. I think companies have realized, and you would have seen the utilization spike is also when you make it simple. So that's been one learning and one consideration that a lot of people or companies have been putting into place, right? I think one of the most important things that came out of this whole sort of world of hybrid was that, look, there are a lot of moving parts, right? I talked about personas, you talk about spaces, you talk about utilization. Now, within departments, how is utilization compared from one department to the other? Or within departments, how is, different people reacting? In some cases, the managers are really good at creating that collaborative environment, getting their teams back and having regular cadence, right? In some cases, the manager's not able to do that. How do you know that? I think getting the data tells you the entire story. So taking a strategic data oriented approach when it comes to forming your workplace policy, because the workplace policy itself has to be agile. What works in June is not going to work in July, may not work in October. And so you've got to constantly keep monitoring the data. We have now seen our customers, and you'll see this curve chart here, right? Actually monitor this on a daily basis, right? They're even seeing how far ahead are people planning, what is happening inside. They're looking at personas, they're looking at employee profiles, they're looking at managers, they're looking at space utilization. Many customers, what they did was they realized that when people come to work, they don't want 8-seater rooms anymore because they're working in smaller groups. So they had to redo their offices, break down some of these large rooms and convert them into smaller pods. They also realized that when they look at the data, the search volume on collaboration spaces was much more than on desks. So maybe I have too many desks. Can I then close some of those and start moving that around? But I think data tells you the real story. The rest is all sentiment, right? I think surveys will give you a lot of data as well, but you need to be able to plot these dots and bring it together and then make strategic decisions. For many of our clients, it's been a monthly or a quarterly update to their workplace policy because things are evolving and change is just a constant, and it will remain like that for the rest of this year at least. We don't know what's going to happen next year. I think, needless to say, given that hybrid's a reality, given the percentages have already been called out, right? Look at it from the perspective of space. There is a fantastic opportunity to optimize on space. We have, privately, a lot of our clients have told us that, look, we've given up 20 to 30% of space. And what they're doing is, obviously packing in people, I shouldn't use the word packing, but at the same time, making sure that using smart, intelligent ways, they've been able to cater to the footfall that is coming in with much reduced space, right? While you do reconfigure your offices and make sure that you have the right kind of space, which again should be data oriented, but at the same time, I think there's a huge opportunity to be able to give back space. Also, what's important is the average headcount for a lot of companies in India, the larger ones, actually went up over the last 2 years. There's been a lot of hiring and shortage of resources and things like that. But you don't need more space for that, right? Because you just use smart systems to be able to manage the situation, and also encourage your people to plan and think 30 to 60 days ahead. And I'll tell you why this is important, because when you think of food, right? Many companies told us that, we, were estimating so many people to come back. We had food organized, we had transport, we had all of these different things, but actually it never got utilized because, people didn't show up. We have another customer in Mumbai who actually told us that in the first week, they had so many people come back, they ran out of food, things were not well thought through. But if they had asked their employees to plan a little in the future and just give some insight, I think they would have had all the data available to them and then matched it against that, right? To know what really happened. And I think having that data, having the information then gives you the ability to restack your spaces, to be able to rearrange it, to make sure your personas get it taken care of. And of course, hugely impacting space cost. Our belief was that the savings that they had was absolutely phenomenal. Many of them gave us some staggering numbers of how much money they have saved during the last 2.5 year period. And now as hybrid is a reality, and that's the only way that companies are thinking, I think it's time to really take that bold step and figure out what your space management or what your your space strategy is going to be moving forward, right? So, well, technology undoubtedly has a huge role to play. And when you think of technology, right, well, is it an app? Is it a backend? Is it, do I need to give, I mean, what do I need to put sensors? I think at the end of the day, we'll take a very different view on technology. What you've got to do, and what I've tried to achieve with this picture, is dissect up a floor plan or a workspace into different zones, right? The first is the entry. What's my entry strategy for visitors? What's my entry strategy for our own people coming back? Are there still health checks in place? Am I counting and monitoring what the footfall is? How am I treating my visitors? Who's, etc., etc. So planning and thinking, and at every point in time, what I've tried to show here is technology intervention, whether it's for the employee, whether it's for, just basically visitors. One of the things was this whole shift, and the utilization on that was significantly higher, was just, not having badges and doing everything pretty much using their phone from entry basically perspective, right? And many of them were unmanned as well. Second, the whole cafeteria experience. How do you make sure that, in your cafeteria, you have the ability to, again, have technology interventions? What are the food choices? What can I pre-order? What's the footfall like? Taking a very data-oriented approach, I think becomes very, very important, right? And so that whole planning, that whole food area out becomes critical, right? Desk, neighborhood creation, what type of seats do people need? Am I measuring the utilization? I think for all these things, technology intervention becomes very, very critical, right? Now you've got to plot the user journey, right? From entry all the way up to desks, to cafeterias. On the top are the collaboration zones, and what are the events that are happening? Are there service requests being raised? Are there classrooms? Are there, learning opportunities? And of course, the meeting room, which we think is going to be very, very important moving forward, because people will spend more time in those collaboration areas and rooms than they will sitting at their desk. And I think data shows us that it's definitely trending upwards, right? But then how do you change that room experience from they having minimal effort to be able to search it, to know, a lot of people took these two-seaters, but they took so many of them. And so, people were running from one to the other, just searching for which one is available. So giving them that visibility, it does in winter, or in summer weather plays an important part. What kind of thermal comfort can we give them? As you know, at home, we were used to just putting on and off the AC every time we wanted to, or the fan, or in many cases, the heater. And of course, in sort of situations, how do you drive that thermal comfort inside of these rooms? But thinking of that experience, right? So at every stage, you have to think of what is the best technology intervention depending on the city you're in, depending on the kind of teams you have, depending on the kind of spaces that you have. You've got to think of a unified model to be able to bring this together. That in our learning has been an ideal technology solution. I showed you the data on number of closed transactions. I can tell you that wherever we have gone and deployed the entire, thought through working with the customer, this whole employee journey and experience, we have found that the experience and the utilization tends to be much, much higher. And I think for a hybrid world, it even becomes more critical, because remember, they're only going to be there on some days. But how do you change that experience? How do you make it a lot more richer? And how do you have data? Because I think that is eventually going to help you make the best decisions, right? Now, there are a lot of technologies, right? And each one has a very important role to play, from collaboration technologies to security technologies to, technologies for access and for access control and for sensors and things like that. How do you bring that together? Because in disparate systems, the challenge and problem, what we have observed is many of the users told us, that they had data, but they had it in silos. They did not have it together. The user experience was in silos. It was not together. So you've got to really think of the plan. It's not easy. It's not about just putting in one piece of software and it works. you've got to drop your roadmap, you've got to think of a plan, and you've got to think of the ability to bring all of this together. I think that really helps in you forming a classic model around a hybrid workplace, because people that work in the hybrid world no doubt require the right tools for them to be able to make the right decisions. So I think to summarize it, right, transitions are challenging, change management is critical, right? We talked about the people side of it. How do you individually cater to the needs of people and their lifestyle, productivity, persona formation, culture, engagement? That's one piece of it. And then how do you make the necessary changes in your workplace to be able to adapt to that, right? And technology definitely at the middle and the heart of it, right? This is the biggest transition that we have seen, I think, over the last maybe few decades, right? And a lot of companies are putting a lot of thought into this, because at the end of the day, hey, this drives retention. This lets you keep your organization metrics the way you want to. And I think it's really helping organizations, basically do the right things, but change management becomes a very key part of it. The second is you need to spend time to understand the correlation between employees, space needs, and how do you bring that together. The last but not the least is, I think without technology, the experience and the kind of stories we have heard can be very interesting. People coming in, not knowing who else is going to be there, and just showing up because they thought that if you book a desk, it means the person's going to be there. No. It doesn't work like that, right? I think there's a lot more thinking that has to go into it. And then, just giving them that seamless experience that, oh, I showed up to work, but you know what? I didn't even get a room because everything was so packed and busy that I landed up getting nothing. I didn't meet anybody. I sat at my desk all day and I'm back. So that whole seamless experience, I think, becomes very, very critical. This is just to summarize a whole bunch of learnings. Now we could, go into a lot more detail on data and things like that. But at this point in time, I'm going to hand over to Jason. Jason, would love to get some of your thoughts around this, and then back to Willie for questions. Thank you.
Yeah, Dinish, as always, I think, all the points that you made have been, the learnings that I have seen in the industry, and as well as, going into depth into how people are using the office and really the world of hybrid changing to where it is today. I think I would just add in that, change management, I've seen with my customers and with the people I've talked to, is the biggest kind of obstacle for many of these organizations. Is getting people to embrace the technology that they're buying. And I think that when you're looking to buy technology that's going to help augment a hybrid working environment, you have to make sure that technology can readily integrate with your organization. It's easy to use, and that it provides the end users the needs that they have, told the organization. And I always stress to customers and clients and different people that we talk to when we're consulting is that it's important that when they're going through this transition and they're going through the journey of implementing a hybrid solution, they need to make sure they get input from everybody within the organization. They need to make sure they're doing tests and they're having surveys throughout to make sure that their process is correct. So when they do get to that point of implementation, they didn't miss anything, and there's no rock that was unturned, and they can better kind of move into that environment and kind of implement it. And I think it's just, again, change management is the most critical, as well as adaptation, the employees adopting the software and actually using it. So that goes into how are you getting them to use it every day? How are you getting them to enjoy using the office and enjoy coming in? And I think many CEOs have said they don't see people coming back to the office at the same levels on Mondays and Fridays anymore. But again, it's working around that and trying to figure out the best ways to get people to collaborate on those days and, try to best use the office. But I appreciate your points, Dinish, as well. And I think at this point, we could probably turn it over to any questions that anybody has, Willie. We're happy to answer them.
Of course, this was absolutely amazing. And one of the questions, Jason, that I actually had for you, I know that you deal with a lot of Fortune 500 companies with, locations all over the world. What are you seeing when it comes to personalization? Like, what are you hearing from your customers to assure that maybe each location don't have similar needs, but might have some similar needs as well. Are you seeing something of that action?
That's a great question. And, just to reframe it, the question is, how are different organizations with all their vast amount of locations and their diverse groups of people kind of approaching a new hybrid world? And I think if you look at the customers and the people that we talk to, they're really taking that input. And I always stress the input from the employees. You can sound like a broken record, but it's really important that you get the input from your high level employees, your medium level employees, and your intro and your entry level employees, because each level of employee is going to have a different desire. And you need to make sure all those needs are being met throughout the organization. As Dinish said earlier in the presentation, you have your senior level people that just want to get to the office and they want to lead and they want people to be empowered by them. And then you have your mid-level people who they want to go to the office and they want to help empower the entry level and they want to kind of work up and get promoted and be part of the organization. And then you have your entry level who their goal is just to be part of the organization and learn as much as they can. So those are going to be the people that you want to come in, you want to engage. And I think if you look at each organization, they're taking their locations as almost little microcosms of the organization, of diversity or what they want to include. And I think if you're looking for a technology, you need one that can be readily adjusted for the locations and the regions of the world to better, attract those employees in those regions and to better provide those employees a better environment.
Awesome. Dinish, I'd love to open up with one of the questions in our chat for you. What are some important things that clients should be looking for when buying a solution? If you were to just break it down into a few kind of main areas that they should be concentrated on.
Yeah, I think Jason mentioned it correctly, right? At the end of the day, remember every organization has different needs, different personas of people, but even within the same client, we see that they need different things in different cities or in different locations, because there would be one, in one location they would have a sales team, in the other location they may have a finance team, and so their needs become very different. The big thing about technology is the ability to give you to adjust. I remember, many years ago, Willie, you probably didn't even start at that time. Your age. But you know what? It was the world of ERP. You had to modify your processes inside of the company to suit the tool, right? Hybrid can't work like that. You will change, you will make changes, you'll constantly make changes, you'll experiment, you'll get the data, you'll move things around. The most important thing is agility, right? How are you agile enough to make sure that you are basically, that the technology suits the ability to, make sure that it's different things to different people, but also different things to different locations and different things to different customers. I think that's been, probably one of the most important things. The second thing I think that is very, very critical is that unified user experience, right? It's not about giving you've got to think about the employee at the end of the day. A lot of people put a lot of restrictions. To come in, you need an approval, you need all these things. But remember, with additional steps that you keep adding, it just makes it harder for the employee. You've got to create that frictionless experience, that is there. And that probably is a very, very important part of that whole decision-making cycle, essentially. And, both these things have got to be, and of course, the third is data, right? You have so many data sources in a workplace now, it's amazing. And with hybrid, it's going to just keep on increasing. And so to collate those data sources and put them together, those are three or four of the important sort of kind of things that people should be looking around from a technology decision-making cycle. And like I think Jason mentioned, try it out, check it out, put it in motion, take surveys, take feedback, and then decide what you want to do.
That's amazing. Another question I have is there any limit? Is there really any limit to where hybrid can go or the future of technology, especially in the workplace? What is the limit, if there is any?
Well, I'll let Jason answer that, but I'll leave you with one data point. IDC just published a report where they said that only 10% of workplaces have truly made the changes and adopted technology that's needed by hybrid. So I can tell you there's a long way to go. Some steps have been taken, but there's a long way to go. But Jason,
yeah, I think I'll jump in on that one as well. There's a long way to go for hybrid, but it's come a long way though. If you look at where hybrid was before the pandemic, it was just really, you were going into organizations and consulting, like telling them how to better use their space and get a better return on investment on space. And it was really all kind of focused on space. There was really no people-centric focus. It was organizations just trying to maximize their space, especially in big cities. And then if you look at how it's really transformed into like an employee-focused platform where you're trying to better the lives of the employees, trying to make them use the space. And I think what companies realize is it's not about maximizing the profitability of the space. It's about maximizing the love of the space and the use of the space in the sense of making the employees happy. And that in turn, I think, provides a better return on a profit than just pure looking at like how much space you're using or how many people per desk you have. So I think like Dinish said, we have a long way to go, but I think it's really exciting to see that hybrid has become, it's becoming more and more of an integral part of all these organizations.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I continue to hear that's a common theme is that face-to-face interaction that I think we kind of lost a little bit right in that transition when we were all on Zoom at all times. Is that something that, I mean, face-to-face interaction is something that is almost a must now, right? Coming back, at one point it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think most working people that are trying to work up the ladder and meet the people in their organization, they need that face-to-face social interaction, because that's where you're going to learn the most, is being in front of people and seeing how they interact and seeing the best way to be part of the organization. And like I said, each location and each organization has so many different diverse people and different locations and different fields that it's important to go into the office to all your regions and to really see where your company stands and the people of your company. And I think that's what organizations are going to find out is not only providing hybrid for people to be in their home office, but providing hybrid for people when they travel to go meet the people in the offices around the world. And I think that is an overlooked part of the aspect, is that we travel a lot in sales, and many organizations have people that travel the world regularly. And those people can be in regions and connect with people and find out who's in the office, and I think better integrate with the company. So I think we'll see that become more important as well.
I mean, guys, thank you so much. I know we continue to do these master classes, and I continue to learn more and more as we go on. It's just such an honor and a privilege to be able to be on a panel with you guys, because the endless amount of learnings it just continues to fill that education and that collaboration piece that we talked about, when learning from you guys. So thank you very much. And I appreciate everybody that showed up for this India chapter of our masterclass. And we're going to continue our masterclass next week in the US as well. So if you guys would like to attend that one as well, please feel free to go ahead and sign up. We're going to continue to be giving these masterclasses to continue to spread the kind of learnings that we're finding all over the world, right? So Dinish, thank you very much. And Jason as well, thank you for some great points, man. So I appreciate everyone that came in, and just thank you very much.
Thanks, Willie. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, everybody. Take care then. Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye.